We kick things off in a fantasy world which has the labyrinth city Merhats. Inside this city is a hospital known as Eris, where our hero, Satu Shiki, is working as a healer. He was reincarnated in this world from his own planet, so he was hoping to do a good job here. But it turns out that he was fired from the job by a cute, curvy girl whose name is Eris. As a matter of fact, it was so bad that she ordered Shiki never to show his face ever again. We do not know yet if this was because he did shady things to her due to his intrusive thoughts. So it's time for a brief flashback within the Eris hospital. We see our hero using a healing spell to remove poison from a cute girl's hands. He gets done with the treatment and then he asks the girl to pay his fee of 400 zeni, which is the currency of this world. This is too much for the girl, so she uses her curvy body to appeal to him. Her equipment had broken down during her last adventure, so she's a little low on cash. However, Shiki cannot let her get away with this again, otherwise he will be fired by Eris. This puts him in a tough spot as the hospital's hired healer. This girl is shown to be a regular adventurer, and she always comes back to the Eris hospital to heal her injuries after she visits the labyrinth. She clearly knows how to play with Shiki, because she gives him a wink and promises not to tell Eris about it. She rubs her body up against our hero, and his intrusive thoughts start to take over in hyperspeed. This is a dangerous situation for Shiki, because he has to face the temptation of twin hills covered by a thin piece of cloth. He tries his best to fight against his shady intentions, but then the girl tells him that he can touch and rub her twin hills if he wants. Her technique is highly effective and starting to show signs of impact as Shiki closes his eyes but puts out his hand to touch what most men may have touched before. He tries to act innocent by saying the Eris hospital is going through some trouble with cash, so his neck may be on the line if he gives another discount without the boss's permission. Of course, he can't fight his intrusive thoughts any longer, so he gives in to temptation and loses the battle against the cute girl's curvy hills. Shiki says that it can't be helped now, so he is willing to go down to 200 zeni, which is more than enough to please his patient. She happily allows him to do unspeakable things to her hills. So our hero turns over to the dark side and states how she is always able to get a discount using this secret technique. However, with one set of twin hills being violated, another set enters the room, and it happens to belong to Eris, who wants to know exactly what Shiki is doing. Our hero is caught in the act, so there's nothing he can do for now, but the girl makes the most of this chance and simply runs away while she can. Shiki can't believe that she has betrayed him, but now he has to deal with the wrath of Eris, who is fuming with rage. She tells our hero that she has warned him time and again regarding discounts, especially when they are given without her permission. Shiki relies on his secret rules of success, but the first rule is to smile and laugh when in trouble. That obviously doesn't work on Eris, and she demands to know why he was touching what he should not have been touching. Shiki thinks of his second rule, which is to give a reasonable explanation for his actions. So he says that the girl's hills were injured, which was why he decided to check them in detail. However, this tactic fails as well, as Eris says Shiki could have cured the girl's hills even if he had used healing magic. There was no need for him to be doing lewd things. And on top of that, Eris was actually watching the whole thing right from the start. There is no other option left for Shiki, so he relies on rule number 3, which is to beg for mercy. He bows down to Eris and says sorry for being a shady boy, but she isn't budging at all. She mentions how Shiki had told her that he wanted to work in the hospital no matter what. However, our hero tells us that the only reason he said that to her was because he wanted to see her curvy body every day. Despite Eris warning Shiki against the discount situation, he has continued to do it again and again. To make matters worse, he does shady things with the patients, just like he was doing to the girl as well. Till now, Eris had allowed it because his healing magic was amazing, but she has had enough of his antics now. This explains why she fires him and tells him never to show his face ever again. Now, our hero is jobless and homeless in another world, with nowhere to go. Shiki has found himself in a bad situation, so he goes to a bar to drink his sorrows away. That isn't helping either, because our hero needs to find a new job quickly. It's not going to be easy, since clinics will not accept anyone with the kind of qualifications he has. This is where he realizes that Eris was a nice girl, as she was open enough to give him a chance. He recalls that Eris had all his luggage packed when she had fired him, which means that she did not do this on an impulse. Eris had actually planned to kick him out a while ago, and Shiki believes it has to do with an incident from the previous day. Our hero had bumped into Eris while she was taking a bath, and carelessly fell on top of her, which led to him touching things that he should not be touching. Shiki can still feel the softness in his hands, but he can't let his intrusive thoughts take over just yet. After all, his goal is to build a harem since he is in another world. It's at this point when he hears someone call out his name from behind. It's the cute girl with the curvy hills, and she asks Shiki why he's drinking at this time of day. He reveals that he got fired from the hospital, and it shocks the girl, but she can only smile and offer her condolences. The girl tries to act calm, so she averts her eyes, but our hero knows that she's aware of the reason for him getting fired. He also remembers another important thing, so he asks her for her name. The girl is shocked that Shiki does not even know her name, especially after all the lewd things she's let him do to her. However, Shiki says that they have only spoken to each other when she would come over to the hospital to get treated by him. He obviously doesn't want any misunderstandings to be repeated, so he urges the girl not to say such things in public. She figures he's right, but Shiki wants to know how she knows his name. Anyway, since the both of them have only been flirting over discounts, the girl decides to reveal her name as Luluka, also known as Lulu. Shiki says he won't forget her name, but that's only because Lulu is the shady girl who has caused him to lose his job. Come to think of it, Shiki realizes that he did give Lulu the discount, but he didn't get to violate her hills the way he wanted to. On top of that, she didn't even pay for the treatment, but he can't exactly discuss these things in public with her. He doesn't know what he's going to do now that he doesn't have a job, but then Lulu comes up with an idea for him. She suggests that Shiki should try his hand at becoming an adventurer. It's not a bad idea, but our hero reminds Lulu that he can only use healing magic. She agrees that it might be hard for him to do this alone, so she advises him to join a party since it will make his life much easier. Shiki decides to ask Lulu if he can join her party, but it's not going to go his way at all. Lulu acts shy and mentions that her party has a very uptight girl, so it won't be possible. Shiki wants to push for a spot in this party, because he had heard earlier from Lulu that it only has cute girls in it. Unfortunately, he will have to dream on because they're not letting him join. It makes sense as well, because if Shiki was in Lulu's place, then even he would not allow someone like him to join such a party. For all we know, our hero would probably end up peeping on the girls while they take a bath or something along those lines. Shiki asks Lulu if a novice adventurer like him would be able to find partners. It pains him to say this, but he doesn't have any friends over here since he's from another world. He hopes to use this emotional tactic to get Lulu to listen, but she's too busy enjoying her meal, so it makes him feel even worse. He asks her if she's even listening to what he's saying, but she says that he'll be able to form a party in no time because his healing powers are out of this world. She wishes him all the best, and continues to eat her food. With that, Shiki has become a loner once again. Our hero walks through the streets of the city, and it makes him recall the first time he had entered this world. We learn that he was stabbed by a slasher and reincarnated in this world as a result of it. At first, he did not know if he was living inside a dream, a game, or maybe even the afterlife. Despite not understanding anything at all, he still walked around the streets with no mission in mind. Luckily for him, he had come across Eris, who had taken him in with open arms. Our hero felt great joy when she offered him a job at her hospital, because this was as good as it could get for him. However, he ended up doing unspeakable things to her patients and even her as well, so Shiki messed it all up. Suddenly, he notices something odd with the crowd in front of him, so he decides to check it out. We learn that it's a slave market, which is why people are getting excited. Shiki tells us that there are many ways to be bought as a slave in this world. But it all boils down to two things in the end. The master will need to provide the basic necessities to the slave, and in return, the slave would do whatever the master would ask from them without any hesitation. If the slave doesn't obey their master, then they will be forced to do so by a magic seal known as a slave crest. Shiki gets an idea and thinks of entering the labyrinth with a bunch of slaves to make his job a lot easier. He puts his mind to work and realizes that it might be the best possible idea for someone like him. The slaves will have to obey him because of the slave crest, so there is no chance of him getting betrayed inside the labyrinth, which is anyway filled with monsters. It's definitely a better choice than having to rely on total strangers. So it looks like Shiki is going to buy him some nice slaves, but he does have a major problem. He's low on cash because he's only got around 60,000 zeni in hand right now. If he is to consider even the cheapest slave, then it's going to cost him at least 200,000 zeni. It's a good plan, but our hero can't risk taking on any debts just to buy one slave. He gives up on this tactic, but then he notices a slave girl with some injuries. She's quite badly hurt, but the thing is that she's a dark elf girl. It looks like she was attacked by a monster and isn't going to last very long, which explains why her price is as low as 50,000 zeni. It's a bargain deal, which means that Shiki can afford her. Of course, he's not a generous man or anything, but he does need a slave, and this girl can be of great use to him. Before he moves ahead, he decides to assess the girl's skills to see if she would be a good fit for his party. He uses his appraisal skills and takes a good look at the elf girl. Her name is shown to be Yule, and she possesses the skill of dagger arts. This makes Shiki happy, because even though Yule is a child, she can easily become an adventurer if she trains her skills. On top of that, the dark elves are a nimble race, so Yule can prove to be useful to Shiki. Our hero tells the slave trader that he wants to buy the dark elf girl, But even the slave trader is shocked to hear this. He mentions that Yule's eyes are damaged and it would cost Shiki a lot of money to get her healed. Of course, Shiki doesn't care about any of this, so he transfers the money and tells the slave trader to make the contract. It is mentioned that refunds are not allowed. And then Yule is given to Shiki as his new slave. He takes a look at her as she bows down to him and gives an introduction. Shiki offers his hand to her, but she is not able to see it, which means that he has his task cut out for him. He decides to take Yule to the inn first. But the problem is that the place they're going to has a bath in each room which is used for shady acts. The fact that Shiki has brought a girl wrapped in bandages also doesn't do him any favors, but he doesn't have any choice. He simply tells the reception girls that he's actually just going to stay with Yule, but he already has a bad reputation. Now, the two of them enter their room, and then Shiki asks Yule if she's tired of walking. He tells her it's time for bed, and then Yule bows down to him again. She thanks our hero for buying her and promises to serve him to the best of her abilities. This gives Shiki a warm feeling inside. But he remembers that he's the hero, not the villain, so he can't let his intrusive thoughts take over. He tells himself to calm down because he is not so far gone as a human being. After all, Yule is a child, so he needs to take care of her almost like a big brother. He tells Yule that she does not have to serve him in the normal way that a slave would serve her master. As a matter of fact, he needs to get the healing started first. Yule is confused upon hearing this. Our hero says that he's going to fix Yule right away, and he unleashes his ultimate healing move to remove all of her injuries. With that, the bandages go away and Yule looks good as new. Shiki says that the treatment is over and then he hands Yule a mirror so that she can see herself. It's a very emotional moment for the elf girl, as she can finally see herself with her own eyes. She needs a moment to calm down, but Shiki is happy that Yule is back to normal again. She takes a look at Shiki and asks him if he is her master, so he decides to act cool in front of her. He asks her if he's handsome, but what happens next is something even he did not expect. Yule hugs him with gratitude and says that he's very handsome and cool, even going on to say that he's the coolest boy in this world. Of course, Shiki has to be neutral, but even he is overcome with emotion. Yule thanks him for fixing her face and body, and she says that she really wants to show her gratitude to him. Obviously, this is not what Shiki has bought her for, so he reminds Yule that he is not a shady man. Even then, Yule acts cute and says that she wants to service him in the best way she can. Shiki figures it's time to tell her the truth, so he reveals that he bought Yule because he wants her to dive into the labyrinth with him. Since he is going to become an adventurer, he will need the elf girl to support him in his journey. Yule feels shy and says that she doesn't know how to be of use to him here since she only has dagger skills. Shiki tells her it's alright, and he will let her eat all she wants for the next 2 days. Then he will train her skills and he'll keep healing her to make sure the process becomes faster. The elf girl is ready to serve her master, so she says that she will always fight by his side, even if it means risking her own life. He tells her that they will go to the labyrinth and conquer it, so Yule says she's looking forward to it. Our hero is shocked that such a young girl is excited for the labyrinth, but anyway, he has now become an adventurer in another world. Now, we fast forward to Shiki and Yule making their way to the labyrinth. Our hero tells us that the labyrinth is a scary place where monsters roam around with deadly intentions. But at the same time, this is also a place where you can make a good fortune if you play your cards right. Yule is extremely happy to be visiting the labyrinth, so Shiki comments that she's like a child going to an amusement park. Of course, he feels a little guilty for taking such a sweet, young girl to a dangerous labyrinth, but maybe Yule is excited because she has faith in her own ability. This theory actually turns out to be true as Yule's dagger skills are so amazing that she's able to take down a whole army of monsters without any problems. The elf girl rushes to her master and asks him how she did. Yule has a very cute look on her face, and it makes Shiki compare her to a puppy who is waiting for her reward. Our hero puts his hand on her head and congratulates her for doing such a good job. As expected, this makes Yule very happy, but Shiki is even happier because she is much more useful to him than he could have ever imagined. As a matter of fact, Yule is able to defeat monsters from the first as well as the second floor without breaking a sweat. By the time they reach the third floor, Shiki stops assessing Yule and simply pats her on her head to show his appreciation. Having Yule on his team definitely feels like a cheat code, but since she is able to come this far without even a single scratch, it puts Shiki's role as a healer under question. He gives off a weird face which makes Yule ask him what's wrong. Our hero realizes that he can't make Yule worry, so he focuses on praising her for her services. This is more than enough to make the elf girl blush and be content with her master. After their latest mission, the team goes to grab a bite, but first, Shiki has to cash in on the bounty. He and Yule have earned 2,000 yeni just from today, and it's all thanks to the elf girl. Our hero buys a nice meal for himself and Yule, but he feels like a shameless leech because he hasn't even done anything in the labyrinth. Yule loves the food, and she has a carefree smile on her face, which at least means that she's enjoying her service as Shiki's slave. Of course, our hero is used to getting scolded by Eris, so he imagines that his curvy boss would mock him for enjoying the money his slave has made for him. He doesn't care about that anyway, because Eris doesn't even want to see his face anymore. Suddenly, he hears someone calling out his name, and it's none other than Lulu. She hilariously grabs our hero from behind and says that he is the only one who can save her. Naturally, Yule is a bit suspicious, so she asks her master who this curvy girl is. Lulu pauses after hearing the elf girl refer to Shiki as her master, so she asks him if he's gotten a slave for himself. She finds Yule extra cute, but is disgusted to see how shady Shiki is as a boy. Lulu can't believe that he prefers girls like Yule, but our hero tells her that she's got it all wrong. Now, Shiki decides to introduce the girls to each other, and he mentions how Lulu would visit him back when he was a healer at the Eris hospital. Similarly, he explains how he bought Yule as his slave, but for the purpose of fighting goblins inside the labyrinth. Now, Lulu finally understands why Shiki bought Yule as his slave, and she is amazed that such a small and adorable girl is capable of taking down so many goblin monsters. She thinks that Yule is amazing, and even asks her to join her own party if she ever comes to hate Shiki for his shady actions. After all, she does need an attack person, but Shiki asks her not to poach his own slave. As expected, Yule says that she will never hate her master, because he had healed her from some horrible injuries. She might not even have survived till now if he had not come along, which is why the elf girl considers Shiki to be the most precious person to her in the whole world. Lulu feels bad for making Yule cry, so she tells her that it was just a joke. However, she is impressed to see no marks on Yule's body, which means that Shiki is indeed a top-class healer. Our hero takes this chance to gloat over his skills, but Lulu has a request for him, so she calls her party members over. They consist of a cute, curvy girl named Syrah, and an angry, flat girl named Fran. Syrah is shown to be sweet as she thanks Shiki for always taking care of Lulu, even if it meant doing shady things to her in exchange for a discount. Fran is shown to be a grumpy girl, who doesn't even greet Shiki when he says hello to her. He obviously gets upset and wants to give the flat girl a piece of his mind, but Lulu tells him that Fran has injured her shoulder due to a monster bite. She wants Shiki to heal Fran because she doesn't want the bite to leave a scar on her skin. Our hero tries to tell Lulu that she should not go on so many adventures if she's worried about getting scars, but then she shoves a bag of coins into his face. It's an upfront payment for the healing, and Lulu isn't even asking for a discount, so Shiki has to be fair. He heals Fran with ease, but she just walks away without even showing a hint of gratitude. Fran actually has the nerve to tell Shiki that she was not the one who asked to be healed, so it makes him want to teach her a lesson again. Our hero is well within his right to punish the shameless flat girl, but he realizes that Yule is there with him, so he needs to set a good example for her. After all, he doesn't want to ruin her mood by showing his angry side in public. Shiki asks Lulu if Fran was the uptight girl she had mentioned earlier, mainly because it's quite obvious that she doesn't like men. Lulu says yes, but also states that Fran is not as bad of a person as she shows herself to be. She decides it's time to leave with the girls, so she tells Shiki that she will come to him again if she needs any healing help. Our hero is fine with helping Syrah or Lulu, but he has no desire to help Fran again. Yule can sense some tension, so she looks up to her master, where Shiki reassures her that she doesn't need to worry about it. The next day, our hero wakes up from a horrible dream where he was mercilessly attacked by an army of flat girls. It's quite obvious that the dream has been inspired by Fran. But then Shiki notices Yule looking cute as ever. They wish each other good morning, and we can see that they are sleeping in the same bed together. Shiki doesn't want us to get the wrong idea, so he explains that it's completely fine for him to sleep next to Yule without letting his intrusive thoughts take over. It turns out that Yule wanted to sleep on the cold, hard floor because she's a slave girl. However, Shiki is not that kind of master, so he carried her to bed and lulled her to sleep, thus proving that he is not such a shady boy. He says all of this to reassure himself, but then Shiki finds himself in yet another hilarious situation. It looks like Yule wants a morning kiss, which is why she has gotten into position for one. As expected, this makes Shiki panic because he doesn't know how to react to this. The elf girl puckers up for the kiss, but Shiki knows that he can't let this happen. He tries to tell Yule that a kiss on the cheek would be fine, but her face is as red as a cherry, so he fears that he might embarrass her. Shiki knows that he can severely affect Yule's confidence if he openly rejects her, but at the same time, he can't give in to his intrusive thoughts. Tensions run high as our hero is at a total loss, but then he sees tears coming out of Yule's eyes, so he pats her on the head instead. She is confused by his actions, so he tells her that she needs to get a little bigger for such things. Till then he wants his slave girl to eat, sleep, and work in moderation. He realizes that Yule was probably trying to comfort him after what happened with Fran the previous day. Of course, if the elf girl was of age, then he would have happily done lewd things with her. As expected, Yule gets upset and asks her master if her body is not enough for him. He explains that it's nothing like that, and the only reason he isn't unleashing the beast from within is because Yule is still a child. He does mention that in a few years, she will be a charming young lady, so maybe they can think about such things when the time comes. Yule luckily gets what he means, and she promises to do her best to be as charming as possible. Shiki breathes a sigh of relief because he has been able to control himself while also not hurting his slave girl's feelings. This is the true mark of a mature master. And he also realizes that Yule really likes him, so he should do his best not to disappoint her. At the same time, he has no intention to give up on his dream to create a harem, because that is his ultimate fantasy. For now though, he must put aside his shady thoughts and take Yule for breakfast. After they're done with their meal, they head over to the labyrinth, and that's when Shiki realizes that he doesn't have any weapons on him. He obviously has Yule, so it's not like he needs them, and he figures that he'd probably just get in the way if he tried fighting by her side. Even then, it's better to have a weapon just for his own safety because one can never get too comfortable. Shiki pulls out a sandwich from his food basket as his elf girl takes down all the monsters on their floor. She happily announces that she's done her job, and then Shiki asks her if she'd like to have lunch. Yule takes a bite of her sandwich and she nibbles on it like a cute puppy. However, once she's done with the sandwich, the elf girl starts to taste her master's fingers, which makes him a bit conscious. It's a rather intense session, but luckily, Yule reveals that the dressing was spicy. Shiki is glad that the dressing was the issue, because he wouldn't have been able to explain this behavior in any other way. All of a sudden, Yule becomes alert as she can sense someone coming in from the deeper part of the labyrinth. Shiki takes a look, and he notices a couple of men limping towards him, asking for help. One of these men appears to be injured, so our hero rushes to them to check if they are alright. The injured man is shown to have lost his foot to a giant ant monster, so his buddy asks Shiki to at least close the wound in order to prevent any further bleeding. Shiki now knows that the giant ant is a beast that will be found in the layers ahead of where he currently is. The task at hand right now is to cure the wound of the footless man, so Shiki springs into action. He uses his ultimate healing spell, just like he'd done with Yule, and to everyone's shock and surprise, the injured man has got his foot back. Not just that, he can move it freely as well, so it's definitely his lucky day. Of course, our hero never likes to do anything for free, so he tries to become greedy by asking for a fair compensation. He's about to ask the men for the cash, but then his elf girl looks at him with dreamy eyes. This makes Shiki conscious, because now he'll come across as shady if he asks for money. He realizes that he must become an honorable master for Yule, so he decides to leave the men alone. The cured man thanks Shiki for saving him, and he is about to pay him for his kindness, but Shiki simply says that he does not need his money. Instead, he asks the man to treasure his life, and then he walks away with Yule in order to look like a cool hero. Shiki feels really good about himself and feels that his character arc is going to become much better now that he has done a good deed. However, the men grab him from behind and say that they need to repay him somehow for what he's done. They say that they should at least buy Shiki a drink, so it confuses our hero. He is clueless as to why these men followed after him instead of just standing there and being amazed by his selfless acts. That's when he realizes that all of them are going the same way since they are exiting the labyrinth. Shiki is then taken to a pub, and even though he feels that there's no benefit in hanging out with these men, he soon takes back his words when they raise a toast together. We learn that the injured man's name is 8 and the other man's name is Geyser, and the both of them are quite nice once you get to know them a bit better. Shiki thanks them for treating Yule as well, but they say that it's nothing compared to what Shiki did for them. Geyser is a bit curious because Shiki should be wanted by every hospital out there if he has such amazing healing powers. That's when our hero explains he's not a priest, so it would be better if 8 and Geyser don't mention his powers to anyone else. 8 puts some thought into this, and then he suggests Shiki to open up his own clinic over here, especially since he's mostly just sitting at the bar all day. Geyser thinks it's a good idea, because Shiki can set up a mobile clinic at the bar and treat adventurers. This is a great option for our hero, but he doesn't know if he'll be allowed to do it. 8 tells him to ask the master of the bar, and believes that it should be fine because Shiki will end up attracting more customers to the bar. There's no harm in trying, so Shiki goes to the bar master and presents his idea. The master immediately approves it, which is amazing for our hero. Without further ado, he proceeds to set up his mobile clinic at the bar, and he even gets a signboard. Shiki thinks back to the time he was unemployed and had to depend on Yule to get his money. But now, he is living a good life thanks to his clinic. He is doing so well that he has been able to buy a mace for his own protection. Shiki's life sounds like a dream come true, but there is one issue that's still bothering him. That one thing happens to be the sleeping beast inside his body, which has been created by his intrusive thoughts. This can be seen in full flow one morning when he wakes up with a light shining like no other from his elephant zone. Naturally, Yule is curious as to what this is, but we don't get to see how our hero handled that situation. Instead, We move to a scene where Lulu and Yule are going to sell a whole bunch of slimes to the guild, and our hero is following after them. It looks like Shiki has told Lulu that the slimes can be used for cooking, but that isn't the truth at all. The true use of the slime jelly is something else. But it's too late for our hero to reveal the truth to Lulu now. The girls are going to sell all the jelly, which means that Shiki will not be able to use it for what he needs. He doesn't lose hope just yet and hopes to catch at least one of them. And as luck would have it, one of the jelly pieces falls off the basket. Shiki activates his super speed to pick up the jelly in the nick of time, and he's glad to have been able to get at least one piece. However, he realizes that the girls have gone ahead of him, so he needs to catch up to them now. At this very moment, he bumps into someone and says sorry for the encounter. However, he can feel something nice and soft in his hands, and this is a feeling he has felt before. It turns out to be Eris and her twin hills that our hero is holding on to. As expected, they are both shocked to see each other after such a long time. It's time to move back time for a bit, so we see Yule holding on to her master with a smile on her face. We learn that Shiki was having a man's talk with Eight and Geyser while they were in the restroom, and he has come up with a solution to tackle his inner beast. Now that he has a solution, he tells Yule that it's time to go to the labyrinth, and they need to head straight towards the 7th floor. This is because our hero is going to hunt some slimes. However, in a hilarious turn of events, Shiki is easily defeated by a slime, and he lies on the floor with disbelief while Yule tries to wake him up. Our hero had no idea that he wasn't even strong enough to take down a slime, but the truth is that he was tricked by these small monsters. Slimes can spit out their mucus, which is very slippery, and that's why Shiki fell on his head and passed out. The plan was to get jelly from these slimes without Yule knowing what they're for, but that clearly is a failed effort. The elf girl worries for her master, but Shiki allows her to laugh at his pitiful state. Instead, she says sorry for not being able to protect him when he needed it. Obviously, Shiki tells her that she's done her job well and it's his own fault for letting such a thing happen. However, he gets hurt once again, and it makes his slave girl very upset. Shiki heals himself and tells Yule that he's fine, so there's no need for her to cry. Despite this, Yule says that she does not have the right to have her head patted by her master. As she says this, our hero notices that her ears have dropped, which means that they move as per the elf girl's emotion. Shiki tells Yule to cheer up because he always wants her to have a smile on her face. He plays with her ears and it makes her feel better, so Shiki can breathe a sigh of relief. Her ears go back up again, but Shiki wonders if Yule is like this because of her living as a slave. He feels that she might need human warmth, which is why him patting her head almost feels like some kind of medicine. Shiki uses his brains and figures that Yule only thinks of herself as a battle slave. Her worth is calculated by her ability to protect her master, which is why his encounter with the slime might have broken her confidence. After all, this is her only connection to Shiki as of right now. Our hero realizes that he needs to say the right words to his slave girl, so he tells Yule that he will always be with her no matter what. This puts a smile on her face, and she glows up with sincere joy. The elf girl promises to try harder next time, and her master says that he will be counting on her for it. This seems to help Yule get her confidence again. And then Shiki decides that they should call it quits for today. Yule is fine with this, but our hero knows that he still has to achieve his goal, which is to obtain the slime jelly. Later in the day, Lulu meets Shiki and asks him if they can go to the labyrinth together the next day. She acts cute and holds our hero close to her curvy body, but this confuses him because she did reject him from joining her party. On top of that, he has no desire to work with the flat, shameless Fran, but Lulu explains that Sierra and Fran are taking a break for now, so it will be just her. Lulu then cuddles with Yule and says that even she is looking forward to it, although the elf girl feels like Lulu is hurting her. Shiki tells her that he's currently in the middle of the 7th floor, so if she's fine hunting slimes with him, then it should be fine. The talk of slimes makes Lulu curious, so Shiki tries to entice her by saying these monsters have been in a lot of demand of late, especially because of the items that they drop. Lulu does not give an instant answer, so our hero fears that his lies have been found out. Maybe Yule did not notice this, but Lulu should have more experience, so it could be possible that she knows what slimes can do to a man. However, Lulu simply smiles and tells Shiki that she will join him for the hunt tomorrow. This is good news for our hero, but then she also asks if she can stay with him for the night. Of course, Shiki says yes, but he wonders if Lulu also has intrusive thoughts for him. The curvy girl is happy to hear this, but she simply says good night and leaves the room. Obviously, this confuses Shiki because he thought that Lulu wanted to share the same room with him. Our hero figures that Lulu was teasing him on purpose, but before he can curse her, Yule tells him that they should also go to sleep now. At least he has his slave girl with him, so Shiki comes up with a plan. We see Lulu outside the room, and she reveals that she did just play a prank on our hero, because she loves to see his face when she teases him. After all, This is the same boy who would give her discounts in exchange for shady acts. Suddenly, she hears lewd noises coming from the room, and she starts to wonder what's going on. Lulu can hear Yule asking her master how it feels, and he says it's amazing. The elf girl gets a little tired, so Shiki tells her that she doesn't need to force herself to do this. It's okay for Yule to stop, but she doesn't want to because she wants to serve her master. Lulu has heard enough, so she charges into the room, ready to confront Shiki for his shady acts. However, all she can see is our hero getting a shoulder massage from Yule. It's time for Shiki to return the favor, so he asks Lulu what's the matter. He asks if something has caught her interest, but she is speechless. He goes on to say that his slave girl is doing her best to give him a massage. It makes Lulu blush out of embarrassment. Now that Shiki has the upper hand, he questions Lulu and her intrusive thoughts, so she runs away from the room feeling shy. Our hero is pleased that he's been able to get back at the curvy girl for her teasing session earlier. Yule now asks her master if she can continue with the massage, so he says yes. After all, it's not like he has any shady intentions for her. The sounds continue to flow from the room, and Lulu can still hear them, so it's safe to say that she does not have a very pleasant night. The next day, Lulu joins our hero and his slave girl in the labyrinth. She can see that Shiki and Yule are very close, especially when he hugs her after defeating monsters. Lulu can't hold her curiosity any longer, so she asks our hero if he does such things with the elf girl regularly. He says yes and asks if there's any problem with it. The curvy girl understands that he's giving the slave girl a reward for her efforts, but it's making her feel left out. Lulu goes on to strike a shady pose in order to tempt Shiki, but he now has experience with her, so he fights back his intrusive thoughts. After all, she could just be teasing him again to get revenge for last night. Yule finds this strange, so she asks Lulu if she also wants to be patted on the head by her master. This leads to an awkward situation, and Lulu starts looking at Shiki with dreamy eyes. Tensions run high, and it looks like Lulu might just act on her intentions, but then she changes the topic and suggests rushing towards the 7th floor for the slimes. This is not something that Shiki can just overlook because Lulu was genuinely giving him eyes of passion. He knows that she has allowed him to do unspeakable things to her, but that was obviously for discounts. Now that there is something real, it might be that Lulu actually likes Shiki. However, he comes back to his senses and says that it's just Lulu behaving like she normally would, so she's probably just teasing him again. Now, the team runs into a bunch of slime monsters, so the girls get to work and do a splendid job. They get covered in some slime though, so Shiki has to stay strong once again. It was a rather easy task, so Shiki is pleased that he has such skilled fighters with him. We learn that a slime's body disappears after it is defeated, but it does leave behind a prop item which is exactly what our hero is after. This is called slime jelly, and it will be the savior for Shiki and his little elephant. Yule takes a bunch of these jelly items and states that they're elastic and soft. Of course, Shiki would not want her to spend too much time with the jelly, but then she suggests that he should try it as well. Shiki plays it off as a joke, but deep down, his shady mind knows exactly what he's going to do with this jelly. Now, we come back to the present time where we see Ruru suggesting that they should sell the jelly items. All of this finally makes sense, because Shiki's plan has now been laid to waste. He does not want the girls to sell all of the jelly items because he will not have anything left to use for his own elephant later on. This is exactly why he jumped for his life when one of the jelly items fell from the basket. However, this is also the exact same time he bumps into Eris again, and to make matters worse, he grabs here where no man should ever grab a woman. Of course, the both of them are shocked to see each other again, but our hero can't help himself, so he tries to feel the softness just a bit more. As expected, he gets slapped by Eris for being a creep and he says sorry for his actions. Anyway, it's a bit surprising to see his former boss over here. And that too, it seems like she's just come out of a bar. Shiki doesn't understand this, because Eris is usually at the hospital at this hour. He asks her if something has happened, but Eris says that it does not concern him and she walks away from the scene. It's a puzzling interaction for our hero, but then Yule and Lulu come back for him and mention that he needs to keep up. He joins his girls again, but he's still suspicious about what Eris said to him. He figures that he should go back soon, and then he thanks Lulu for all her help today. The curvy girl hugs Shiki closely and tells him that they should do this some other time as well. Naturally, this makes Yule a bit jealous and our hero very awkward. The curvy girl leaves the scene and Shiki comments on how odd she is, but then Yule holds onto his arm. He asks her if something's the matter, but she says it's nothing even though she knows she wants her master all to herself. Now, Shiki and Yule go to the bar and catch up with Geyser and Nate for a drink. They are impressed to learn that our hero is already at the 7th floor, but he gives the credit to Yule and her impressive dagger skills. The men tell him that he's not exactly a bad fighter and Yule can only battle the monsters with freedom because she knows that her master is standing right behind her. She is a bit cheerful now after hearing this, but she wants to know why everyone is celebrating so much right now. Shiki tells her that it is to enjoy the success of beating all the slimes today. The elf girl does not understand why beating slimes is such a big deal, but before Shiki can say anything, 8 tells him that he should not bring up the topic they had discussed earlier, especially not in front of his slave girl. That's when we learn that the slime jelly is some kind of relief device which will help our hero maintain his image in front of Yule. After all, he can't afford to give her the wrong impression if she were ever to catch him in the middle of something unspeakable. However, our hero suddenly loses his senses and taps into his intrusive thoughts once again when he sees the maids of this bar. They are all cute and curvy, so he can't get his shady mind off them. Yule notices this and she wonders if she would look better if she also wore a maid costume. She even gets the incentive to do so, because her master says that he would prefer to see her in such an outfit. 8 says that Shiki should buy Yule a maid skirt because he needs to reward her for all her hard work. Our hero agrees with 8 because he knows how much Yule would like to dress up for him. Yule blushes and feels shy because she does not know if she would look good in a maid skirt. Shiki drinks one more jug of beer and he tells his slave girl that he is going to buy her the skirt no matter what. He wants to thank her properly for all the monsters she's been defeating, and on top of that, he also tells the elf girl that she should be more confident in herself. He also mentions that Yule is quite cute the way she is right now, and it boosts her morale. She gains energy and promises her master that she will do her best. But it doesn't look like Shiki is doing too well himself. He instantly passes out and falls to the table, much to everyone's surprise. Yule panics upon seeing this, but Geyser and 8 reassure her that Shiki has just gone to sleep. The next day, our hero curses himself for drinking too much because he has run out of money. This is a problem because Shiki did just promise to buy his slave girl a maid skirt. With no other option, he heads to the labyrinth with her once again and they go straight to the 7th floor. Shiki puts his brain to work and realizes that the monster with the most valuable drop item would be the King of Slimes, who is basically just a giant slime monster. If he defeats it, there's a small chance that the King of Slimes will drop the Slime's crown, which is a popular collector's item. As a matter of fact, it's so popular that it could fetch a price as high as 200,000 zeni. It's a very tempting thought for Shiki, but he does not know if he should risk Yule over here. Sure, she can defeat tons of tiny slime monsters, but the King of Slimes is a whole other ball game. Shiki figures it's too risky, because he does not want the slime boss to hurt Yule and damage her in front of him. Right ahead of Shiki and Yule is the boss room, and the elf girl that she's ready to enter it at any time if it's for her master's sake. She thinks it's just a big slime at the end of the day, but Shiki says that it would not be wise for them to tackle such a boss monster just by themselves. Yule does not argue with her master and comes back to the bar clinic with him. Shiki knows that it would be a great way to earn a lot of cash, especially since his earnings from the clinic are not that high now. However, he's making enough to save for Yule's skirt, so he's happy with himself. Yule asks Shiki if she can go fix her hair for a bit and he allows her to do so. She rushes away and it makes our hero a bit suspicious. But before he can think about it any further, Lulu comes to him and asks him to heal her. Shiki thanks Lulu for her loyalty, but he also mentions that he's expecting her to pay a fair price. However, Lulu doesn't seem too intent on paying her cash to our hero, and says that she wants him to have a look at her injury first. She says this with shady eyes, so what exactly does she have planned for Shiki? Is our hero finally going to get her curvy body? Like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.